It's your boy Preezy. I'm here with journalist and author Rob Kendall. Rob, how you feeling?
I'm feeling blessed, man. It's good to be here today. LES NYC.
Well, definitely. So today we're shooting out here in the LES, and what significance does this place hold to you? Like, basically, why are we shooting here?
We're sitting on the stoop of the former location of Irie International Records. This was my first music job in New York City back in 1987. This used to be the poppin' reggae record shop, and my job was to sell the latest vinyl and cassettes and catch the shoplifters before they got out the door. So it was a lively and once in a lifetime experience. This is where I met people like Shinehead, Scientist, KRS-One. They would all come through the shop, and this was really the hub in downtown New York City for reggae and hip hop mixing together. We would sit here on a Saturday night, listen to Red Alert on the radio, figure out where the party was going to be, where Payday would be held at, or whatever the latest jam was, and go see like the first performance of De La Soul in the neighborhood, or KRS-One and BDP shot their video around the corner from here for You Must Learn. So this was really a hub of culture, and I dove in head first and never looked back.
Alright, so what and who led you to hip-hop journalism, or even journalism in general?
I guess it was my little sister Lisa that was playing LL Cool J tapes. That was like when I was living in Baltimore. She was more hip to hip-hop than I was. And at the time, my teacher in high school was directing videos for the Sugar Hill Gang. So this guy, Nelson Swegler, this Russian dude with like wild polyester suits, he taught like the TV production class in my high school in Baltimore. And one day he came to the school and he said, "I'd like you to see what I've been working on the weekends up in New York City." And he played us the video for Apache by Sugar Hill Gang. And I was like, my mind was blown. And I said, I have to find out more about this shit. So went to college in Chicago. I was involved in the music scene in Chicago, collecting records, DJing. Went to a lot of shows, a lot of dancehall and reggae mostly. But we would see like Beastie Boys, Yellow Man, Run DMC, whoever was coming through at the time, we'd catch them. But it was really when I moved to New York City after I got out of college and started working in this record shop, collecting my vinyl, started DJing in clubs around the city. Over here in Tompkins Square Park, Keom Hi-Fi, Doc and Smalley would keep a regular weekend jam in the parks, and I was a participant in culture. It was a beautiful time to be alive and to be a part of this thing. So that was before the writing about music. That was just collecting records, loving music, spinning in clubs, did a little MCing, and ran around different clubs with artists like Jamalski and GT English, Rocker T. We had a little clique of dancehall artists from downtown. Hey, what's up, man? Come on through.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
So anytime, like on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, we would hit half a dozen clubs on a regular basis and just run in, like when Jamalski had that Jump, Shock Out, Do It and Move Your Body record that was getting played on the radio in New York. We were his team, so I would like DJ for him. We would run around and hit all the clubs, and it was a thrill. It was an exciting time.
Right. Definitely. Hold on. I can edit all this shit.
Yeah, no doubt.
Alright, so what are the greatest things you've learned or experienced during your creative journey?
Wow. I have learned to listen and observe more than to try to overpower a situation. I always try to enter in a humble way and learn from every experience. It was right here in this record shop where I first met some of the people that I've stayed in
pause, matter of fact, and I'm gonna actually So you was talking about what and who led you to journalism?
Yeah. So if I was gonna say who led me to journalism, my father was an English professor. So I grew up in a house full of books, and I kind of knew that I wanted to write and that it was possible to be a writer. So that's really what led me to journalism, was really my father, Hugh Kenner, and that's who I dedicated the book, The Marathon Don't Stop, to him. He was my first and best teacher. But actually getting into it was coming to New York City, trying to get a job in magazines and music. I couldn't get on at Rolling Stone. That was not happening, so I ended up working at an art magazine called Art and Antiques. I was the editorial assistant, worked my way up to become editor-in-chief, and I quit when I heard about this magazine called Vibe. I had heard that Quincy Jones was starting a magazine up. It was going to be basically the hip-hop Rolling Stone and present this music on a, a proper level of respect. And I thought to myself, I bet they're not going to do reggae and dancehall justice, and I wanted that to be a part of the hip-hop conversation, because it is. It's part of the roots. We're celebrating Kool Herc and 50th anniversary of hip-hop. He's a Jamaican youth who came to New York with his family and really brought Jamaican sound system culture to the world. So, hip-hop and dancehall are intertwined. I wanted to make that point. So I stepped to Vibe when it didn't really exist. I think they were calling it Volume at that point. I was sending letters with a stamp in the mailbox, not email, and got an assignment to write a story about the great Super Cat, who is still my Don Dada, the top shata of dancehall as far as I'm concerned. And this was right when the Don Dada album had just dropped. He was doing records with Heavy D and Frankie Paul, and it was legendary shit in New York City. So I had that opportunity. I was blessed to see him perform at Sting, clash with Ninja Man, interview him up at the Sony building, and it was just like a dream come true. And the story was published in the first test issue of Vibe, Tretch on the cover, '92, and for a year nobody knew if this magazine was going to come out or not. Then I got the call in summer of '93, which is now, 40? How many years? I'm not good at math.
Yeah,
30
like
years? 30 years now? That is a stretch of time. But I remember that call. I turned in my resignation the same day as my editor-in-chief of the art magazine. I said, thank you, it's been real, but I got to go do this thing that I've been wanting to do my whole life. And we started doing Vibe magazine, and I was there for 17 years. I'm the only editor that was from the startup team that got marched out of the building when we folded in 2009. So it was quite an adventure.
So what are the greatest things you've learned or experienced during your creative journey?
I think the greatest thing that I've learned is the power of belief. If you believe in something, you can make it happen. And nobody really tells you that in school. Society doesn't always want people to think they can do anything if they believe, because honestly, it's easier if everyone behaves like a sheep and just follows in the path that they're told to follow. But if you believe, you can achieve, and that has been the story of my whole career. Nobody gave me a job application to fill out and say you can be a hip-hop and reggae journalist, or you can live a whole life doing what I've been blessed to do. I just believed it and made it happen. It's the same example that I saw from someone like KRS-One, living in a homeless shelter, popping out to make records with his supervisor in the homeless shelter, DJ Scott LaRock, and creating this phenomenon, Boogie Down Productions, and changing the world, and up until very recently, I had a chance to see KRS-One up in the Bronx during the early celebrations of the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, and I was honored that he remembered me, and he called me an MC, because we've had little times in the cypher where we pass the mic around, and KRS would come to a reggae party even if he had, a poster to go to a hip-hop event, he would pass through our reggae party as well, because, he just showed love for the culture. And it humbled me and honored me, because I seen him in the Barclays Center doing a verses with Big Daddy Kane, and this is the same individual that's, giving me a pound and showing me respect. So, it's all the power of belief, and that is the biggest lesson that hip-hop shows. It's like you can elevate yourself and your community, and all through the power of just believing in what it is that you have to give to the world.
What are your thoughts on the landscape of hip-hop journalism and media today, and how has it changed for better or worse?
Wow. Well, hip-hop journalism today, there's no barrier to entry. Anyone can do it. It's, you know, really just a matter of picking up a camera phone or, you know, posting on your Twitter. So that can be good, and then again, it can also lead to a kind of retweet journalism. You know what I mean? Like everything is just reporting on what you saw on social media, and it removes that human element. You know, it's very important to do like what you're doing today, Preezy, is get out in the field, do individual conversations, talk to people that did things, and, you know, make new things happen. And that's where journalism becomes culture. And we need more of that, and maybe a little less of the social media influencer brand of journalism, because I think, you know, you can only do so many top 5 dead or alive debates, and, you know, it becomes a little bit repetitive after a while. I think the real soul of journalism is telling human stories, getting out to talk to the people that don't always get talked to, and, you know, shining a light in a corner that hasn't had a light on it before. You know, these are the things that excite me. You know, when Vibe first started, the first issue of Vibe was almost going to be, after the Tretch issue, of course, when we got the green light to go into monthly production, it was almost going to be Janet Jackson. There's a famous Janet Jackson cover where she's got, you know, her hands over her boobs, or somebody else's hands over her boobs, I think. Anyway, we were offered that as the first cover, and the editor-in-chief at the time, Jonathan Van Meter, is like, fuck that, we're going to create our own cover. We're not going to take an image from the record label and just put out a Janet Jackson issue. You know, all respect to Janet, but we ended up shooting a MC from Long Beach named Snoop Doggy Dogg, and, you know, he's turned out to be quite an individual in his own right. So, you know, sometimes it's more important to do the thing that hasn't been done before, and that's what real journalism is.
Definitely. Do you have any advice to up-and-coming writers?
Read. Don't just write. Read. Not just journalism. Read novels. Read the newspaper. Read the cereal box. You know, just reading is kind of a lost art in a way. If you're really going to be a writer, you know, not everybody likes to read. That's the honest truth. We're having this conversation on video, and it's cool, Preezy, that you're doing multimedia. I think multimedia is really important because you reach more people with it, honestly. But reading is a different experience. It's deeper. It goes on in your own mind. You know, you're making marks on a piece of paper that trigger things in the reader's mind, and it's a really mysterious art form that, you know, if you are a writer, then you probably are also an avid reader. And that's a good way to find out if you really want to be a writer. It's like, do you love reading? Do you get off on like reading random weird shit and just like experiencing the voice of that writer and vibing on that? And so I think that would be my advice, is make sure you really want to do this. Hey, how's it going, man? We in your way? Thank you.
One more question I want to ask you about.
Yeah, no doubt. If you loan it to me, this is your copy now, so.
Alright, and today you also have a copy of your book that you wrote, The Marathon Don't Stop. Can you tell us about how that came to be and what it's all about?
Yeah, so this book right here is Life and Times of Nipsey Hussle. It's a book that I wrote. I started it before.
Let us do this again. Alright, so today you have your book, The Marathon Don't Stop. You know what you wrote about the late great Nipsey Hussle. Can you tell us about how that book came to be and what it's all about, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I first met Nipsey Hussle when he came up to the office of Vibe magazine in 2009. He was going to play us his mixtape that day, which was Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 2. And everyone that was in the office that day at Vibe remembers this young man. He was just an electric personality. You could just feel his energy. And then when he pressed play on the music, that was dope. You know, quite apart from music though, you could just feel this was a powerful individual. And after hearing him flowing over the Gin and Juice beat on that Jackin' for Dre Beats is the name of the track on the mixtape, if you ever want to look it up, I was convinced. And so after the session, I, you know, stepped to him and just gave him a pound and said, you know, keep doing what you're doing. We're gonna do our best to shine a light on you. And I didn't know at the time, but he had been trying to get in Vibe and get in the next section for a long time, and he was a little frustrated, but he finally accomplished his goal. And that was kind of the story of his whole journey, is just persistence and belief and just overcoming. And that's what the marathon is really all about. So this book is the sum total of all my experiences of covering him over the years, leading up to a big interview that we did when he dropped his album Victory Lap. And you know, at that time, you know, it was like an over an hour conversation that was cut down to a 5-minute YouTube clip, and I was like, this is much too much here that we're leaving out. We need to do this a little deeper. And I committed myself at that point to telling Nipsey's story. So over time, I've been blessed to speak with all sorts of people that were part of his journey, and thank God people love the book, and it became a New York Times bestseller. And you know, I've had a lot of people come up to me and tell me that it had a positive impact on their lives. So that's all anyone wants to know when you're a writer or an artist or a filmmaker, is that people actually partake of the work that you put into something and it touches their heart. So this book means a lot to me. I finished it during the pandemic, and you know, a scary time in New York City, a scary time in my life. And here we are today, you know, celebrating and looking ahead as the marathon continues.
Definitely. What would you say is the highlight of your journalism career?
Wow. The highlight of my journalism career, for me, I think it would have to be getting on at Vibe in the beginning and realizing, like, once we had really started, that, you know, I really worked for Quincy Jones. Like, Quincy Jones is an idol to me, an icon in the music. You know, the work that he did, people from, you know, Count Basie to Michael Jackson, you know, starting Will Smith's acting career. There's so many legendary accolades that you can talk about with Quincy, but you know, to meet Quincy in the office for the first time when he came through, and just the little jewels that he dropped, and more so just his energy and his relaxed greatness. You know, he was never uptight or stressed ever. And one of the things he said that always stuck with me is, when we're making music in a session, we always leave the door open wide enough for God to walk in the room. And I try to always remember that.
Well, definitely, man. Well, Rob Kenneth, it was great speaking with you. You know, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Preezy, and keep doing what you're doing. Enough respect in all aspects.